Okay, we're on Live Producer. We are on Live Producer. How's it going, everybody? It's Jesse just jumping on last minute. We're going to give it a little bit of time to let people jump on here. Whoops, do I have an echo? No. But I had an echo for a second. Maybe I do. But it's really subtle and hard for me to hear. So as long as I can barely hear it, we are good. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're all doing amazingly. Whoops, I forgot to tag the, darn it. I was going to tag the Stay Wet palette that I'm about to talk about in the link in the comment section. Hold on, let me see if I can still do that. I don't think I can, but let's see. Edit that. Give me a second, everybody. Right, here we go. Link to the one I use. Give me a second, everybody. Give me a second. I didn't know that is not it. So you guys know what I'm talking about if you guys want to get one. It is up to you. Sorry that I'm looking down at my laptop. Give me a moment. There we go. Save that. I got to save it in there too. Okay. Save changes. What the heck? All right, everybody. Sorry about that. It just took me a moment to make an adjustment to my to the information on the sorry, I'm distracted, everybody. Give me a second. I'm almost done. Very last minute, everybody, so taking a little bit longer than expected. Bear with me, almost there. You're gonna learn how to use a Stay Wet palette. Stay Wet palette allows your painting, keeps your acrylic paints fresh for long periods of time. Okay, so what that is, what a Stay Wet palette is, in case you guys aren't familiar with this, it's basically a box. Okay, I'm gonna describe this here in just a moment. I'm gonna break it open and not break it open, but show you guys the components. Basically, there's a box with a lid that you can close to help keep your paints wet for long periods of time. Acrylic paint dries very quickly, dries within minutes, and it depends also on the type of acrylic paint that you're using. Some acrylic paint is heavy bodied, meaning it's thicker, it has less water in it, and that dries out very quickly. Other acrylic paint has more water in it, it's a little more flowy. That takes a little bit longer to dry, but it still can dry very fast within minutes, especially if you're painting in a warmer environment. So what you want to do to avoid that, what you can do as an option, and I don't use this very often, I only use this from time to time. I use a Stay Wet palette. I'm going to demonstrate how I use it. I used it earlier today. I've made these, that's my original apple painting. I made this one during the session earlier today in the membership. And I used the Stay Wet palette to keep the wet paint, the paint, especially the colors inside for the apple, wet for about 2 hours. Okay. So there we go. My apologies one more time, folks. There you go, Christine. Fantastic. What's happening, Gloria? Sandra Marie Ramirez, how are you? Diane Crandall, what's going on? What's going on? So, again, I don't use a Stay Wet palette very, very often. I tend to mix lots of paint when I'm painting. I just use paper plates or styrofoam plates. And I just kind of mix everything there, toss them when I'm done. The only problem with that is that sometimes I'll have to spray my paint. Let's say it's on a paper plate or a styrofoam plate or whatever. I'll use a mister to spray the paint to keep it from drying out on me. Give me 1 second. Let me lower the volume on my phone. I think I found the source of my, there we go. That's it. Okay, now, so the echo is distracting me, and it's because I had the volume on my phone up just a little bit, enough where I could pick it up. Okay, so basically, because acrylic paint dries very quickly, something that you can use to keep it from drying out on you is one of these guys. Okay, fairly cheap. I put a link in the comments to the one that I use. You can buy it directly off of Amazon. It's usually more expensive when you buy things from Amazon, so you'll want to shop around. Local art stores have these, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, etc. So here's a smaller one. This isn't a very big Stay Wet palette, but I've got the paints that I used in here for my apples. Okay, the main thing that I was concerned about is the colors inside of the apple, because it requires steps where you build up from what I like to do is I'll start with my medium value color, somewhere that's in the middle, and then I'll layer that down. Then later, once that's dried, either I'll take a blow dryer and dry everything, or I'll let it dry as I'm working on some of the other stuff. Then I'll come back and add my darks, and then I'll come in and add some of the lighter values, and then I jump around in between and I'm adding all these little details. In that process, if I've got my paint mixed on a basic palette or paper plate or styrofoam plate, whatever, the paint can dry on me before I'm ready to use it. And when I come back to use it, it's dry and I've got to remix paint. That can be a big pain in the butt, especially trying to match color. So what a Stay Wet palette does is it keeps your paint wet throughout the entire session that you're painting on. Now, what these guys are made of, just a plastic box. There's a sponge inside. This sponge is removable and replaceable. You add water to it. Right now it's nice and wet. This is done, so I'll be tossing it in a moment. But basically, you have these paint palette papers. They're basically membranes that water, when you place this on top of your top of the sponge inside your little box, you use this as your palette. You put your colors up on top, just like what I had. Whoops, I know I folded it now, but I had all my colors on the edges, my paints on the edges, and then I used the area down in here to mix. Okay, so because this is a membrane, water comes through it a little bit. This will stay nice and damp. As long as there's water in your sponge, this will stay damp and your paint will not dry out. Now, let's say you're not done with your session. Let's say you're painting for a couple of hours or whatever. You got to leave your painting alone for a bit. You've mixed all this paint. You can do this. You take your lid, cover it, and now this is going to stay wet for days, for a few days now. Now, it won't stay wet indefinitely. From my experience, there's still enough air that gets in on the edges where the paint will eventually dry out. But this will stay fresh. It'll stay wet for a few days. So you can always come back to it tomorrow, and whatever paint you mixed 2 days from now will still be ready for you to use on your painting. So you don't have to remix paint. Again, color matching, trying to match a color because a paint has dried out on you, it can be a little difficult. Okay, so that's the purpose of these Stay Wet palettes. Definitely recommend it. Again, I don't always use it, but in something like this where it's going to take me a while to build up my finished product, my finished piece, then most definitely they come in handy. So again, they're called Stay Wet palettes. You can make these. You can also make these. Some people like to make their own. I've never made one, but this one's Masterson's Stay Wet Handy Palette. I put the link in the description of the video. At least I think I did. And if I didn't, yeah, I sure did. If you guys are interested, you could click on that. It'll take you to Amazon where you can see the product. You could check out reviews. You can compare items, and you can buy it directly with that link. I would say shop around. Amazon tends to charge a little higher for these. I think this one's probably about $12 plus shipping on Amazon, where you could probably find it for about $10 at a local art store. But anyhow, they come in very handy. There are versions of this for oil painting. When I used to do a lot of portraits and stuff, especially when you're mixing skin tones, once you've got the right skin color, you don't want it to dry out on you, especially if you're not going to be able to come back and paint again for another week or whatever. So they have a version of these. They don't use water. They don't have a sponge. You just put the you do have you can use a palette paper where you put it inside, you seal it, make sure it's got a nice seal, and it'll keep air out of it. And it'll last about a week, sometimes 2 weeks, depending on how good that seal around the edges is. Now, of course, these are reusable. You can get replacement sponges, you can get replacement filler paper, et cetera, et cetera. So it's basically the box, and then you just buy refills for the stuff that's inside. And you buy them in bulk. You buy a whole bunch of them. So anyhow, pretty basic. What's happening, Olivia? I missed you too. Christine says they have wet palette paper you soak in water for 15 minutes and they are reusable. Perfect. I've never used those. Christine. I have seen them. Never used those. That would be better than having to throw away your palette paper, I suppose. But yeah, that would be a great option to try. Maybe one of these days I'll try it. Yeah, okay. You got a bigger one. Okay, yep. They make some really large ones. This one's not very big, so whenever I'm going to use this, I use it just for a few colors. The other colors that aren't necessarily, it's not necessary for them to stay wet throughout the entire process, or I can easily remix. I'm not going to be spending a lot of time painting with those colors. I'll mix on a paper plate, etc. But the colors that are important for me to keep wet for a long period of time, I can use one of these guys. Again, I don't use these very often. This is about the second or third Stay Wet palette I've had over years, and they don't get a lot of use. I've probably had this one for about a year, and I've used it maybe 5-6 times. But most definitely these come in handy. Whenever I do use them, I'm like, oh my gosh, why don't I use it more often? These are just awesome and highly recommended if you're trying to keep your paints wet. But get a larger one. This is a very small one. It's about an 8x10, somewhere in there, about the size of maybe a little bit smaller than a regular sheet of paper. So I would recommend getting a larger one. It'll just be better for you overall. All right. Anyhow, folks, that is all. I wanted to jump on here really quickly and talk about that. You'll see me jumping on here from time to time more frequently and give you guys little tips on this stuff. A few days ago, I did one on color, on paint mixing, and it was a combination of how to mix quantities so you don't mix too much, and then also how to color match, a little bit about color matching. All right. But anyway, let's see. Are there any questions in the comments that I might have missed? Ask your questions, folks. I'll be on for another maybe couple minutes. For some reason, I can't see all the comments or all the questions. Not sure what's happening there. Give me a second. Maybe I can see them here. No, for some reason, I'm only able to see some of them. So weird. Oh, I see. Give me a second. Here we go. I was on the wrong page. Wrong place. What's happening, Roxanne? How's it going from Pittsburgh? Just want to say hello to a few of you. Gloria, what's happening? I'm monitoring the feed on my laptop, so that's why you see me looking down. It's not that I'm distracted over here. Gloria, Diane, I think I said hi to you guys, but just in case, let me run down the list. What's happening, Tracy? Sandra, of course, I said hello to you earlier. Diane, then Ivy Berkowitz from San Diego. What's happening, Ivy? Olivia, I missed you too. Let's see, what else? Rachel Simmons. Yep. So Rachel, Christine Hubbard commented earlier, she's seen paper that you soak for 15 minutes and it's reusable. So I suppose you can clean it and reuse it. Okay, I've never used that. I've only ever used the disposable paper that you get rid of after every use. So apparently there is some. Good to know. Maybe I'll try some of that sometime in the future and talk a little bit about that. Okay, but all right, everybody. What else? How is everybody doing? I hope you're all doing amazingly. Like I said, I'll be popping on. You'll see me popping on more frequently here, talking about little tips and tricks on the Painting with Jesse page. So, all right, everybody. If that's it on the questions, let's see. Christine says the Masters on Stay Wet paper says it is. Okay, cool. I'll have to check it out, Christine. I'll have to try it out. I suppose that would be good for some people. Which make is reusable in the papers? Christine says Masters. Okay, Masterson, basically the same brand that I've got here. The one that I have though is not reusable. The paper's already soaked through. Yeah, pretty much the same. Pretty much what I've been experiencing throughout. This is the same stuff that I've been using for a few years. Again, though, I don't use these often, so I'm no expert on these Stay Wet palettes. Once I find something that works, I usually stick to it until I find something different. But Masterson's, yep, Masterson's, all one word. Stay Wet Handy Palette. Okay, again, for those of you that are interested, I put a link in the description of the video. You can click on it. It'll take you right over to the Amazon page where you can review it, etc. But again, you buy it wherever you want. Just do a little bit of research, and you'll find something local that works better for you. But all right, everybody. Yeah, let me hold on real quick. Let me see if I can respond to you. I'm going to put it right here. Let me see. There we go. I'm putting it in the comments now. Is the link to the Stay Wet palette. So, Rachel, if you do the apple of my eye painting session from earlier today, when you get a chance, you'll see me using the Stay Wet palette throughout. Okay, so you'll get a better idea as to how I use it. Pretty basic, just like you would any palette, right? The main thing though is that it keeps. Oh, here we go. Got to post it. That it keeps your paints nice and wet. But if you check out that video, you'll see me using it throughout that. Okay. But all right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me for a few minutes. I will see you all very soon. Hope you all have an amazing rest of the evening. Bye now.